Luigi, Merna, Nada, Naya, Matar, guys, welcome back. Sorry, the session ended automatically. The Zoom recorded video is 40 minutes, and the session is 15 minutes, but sometimes it ends before we finish. Now I have 13 participants, 13 students in the room. I have Matar, Dahruk, Danielle, Luigi, Mariam, Maya, Mirna, Kiki, Nada, Omar, Basant, Salma, and Abdurrahman. Thank you all for joining again. I'd like to share this page. Can you see the screen now? A tale of two
Yes.
cities. Okay.
Yes.
We were doing the last question of the prologue, and it was about the host of the inn. And the question was, what does his idea of accompanying them tell you about him? Some ladies said he is curious. Yes, he's curious. And some ladies said generous. Yes, he's generous. How is he generous? He was generous when they visited his inn, and by giving her time, his time, sorry, and wasting his time to go with these people just to be a judge. This is generosity, another type of generosity, because sometimes you are generous by paying money, sometimes you are generous by giving time. He allotted some of his time for accompanying them on their journey and judging their stories. He is curious because he wants to know more and more about the people, and he is generous. In brief, curious and generous. I'd like to give some feedback about the first session. Some people joined the session but didn't say a word. Farah attended the session, but I considered her absent because when I called her name, she didn't answer. Samar the same. Gamal the same. Mariam also. Mariam didn't answer me. Mariam, sorry, Mariam, you were absent in the first session. Farah was absent in the first session. Samar was absent, and Gamal. Karim, you never answer me. Whenever I ask you a question, you say, I have a problem with the internet. I lost connection with something. I was doing something. You always have an excuse. So I consider you attending the session, but please try to avoid this behavior. Hamid, Luigi, Hamid, Jana, and Nada, you attended the session, but you never answered the question. Omar, you attended the session, but I'm not sure whether you were following up or not. Nada, I'm not.
Mister, I'm following
I
up.
was following up.
So why don't you raise your hands?
I did. I
I
did.
did,
You didn't
Nada.
notice.
Mm,
Yes, I
Me
did a
too.
lot.
notice, I'm sorry, but
Me too.
Omar, please be more active. I know you attended, I know you follow up, but please be more active. Okay, thank you very much. Uh, this is book 2, chapter 1. Let's remember, A Tale of Two Cities consists of 3 books. The big book is divided into 3 books. Book 1, which we studied in term 2, it was titled Recall to Life, and you remember who is meant by these words. And it consists of 6 chapters. We studied them one by one, and we said it's not in the term 3 exam, but you should know it because it's the basis of the story. It tells you what's going to happen next. I want 2 people to summarize book 1, the first 6 chapters, in their own words. And briefly, please. I want two people to summarize, just for those who weren't following up. I want two people to summarize book 1, the first 6 chapters. Anybody ready? You know, we did this again and again. Every day we summarize the previous chapters. So I have Mirna only. What about the others? What about the others? Guys, more hands, please. More hands, please. I have 17 students with me. Peter. Get away, Peter.
Hey, mister. I'm sorry, my cat.
This a cat or a baby?
No, it's a cat.
Congratulations. You have a baby at last. Okay.
No, a cat.
You know, I'm joking.
Okay.
Okay, Mirna. Wait, Peter. Mirna, go ahead.
First, the first book opens by describing the situation in the oppressive situation by the monarchy in both France and England. And then starts the first events by a male coach going to I don't remember the name of the town. What?
To Dover.
Yes, to Dover, from London to Dover. And this male coach has an important character, the one working in the bank called Mr.
Jarvis Lorry.
Yes, Jarvis Lorry. And then he receives a message by a messenger that tells him that Miss Manette is waiting for him, and he answers by recall to life, and then he keeps imagining when he sees Dr. Manette and how will he identify him after being imprisoned for 18 years. Then he goes to a hotel called Royal George Hotel, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And he tells them he'll have a guest. The guest is Dr. Manette's daughter, and he tries to tell her an analogous situation, but it's the same situation as her father's, but not mentioning that it's her father. However, she understands that her father is finally out of prison. I mean, she's shocked to know that her father is out of prison after thinking that he died. And then
we reached the Saint Antoine district and the wine on the ground, remember?
Yes. So they reached that wine shop with Mr. and Mrs.
Gage.
Yes, and then he the owner of the shop, he leads them to a room where Dr. Manette is, and they ask him about his job. He says that he's now a shoemaker. He does not remember that he was a doctor, and he thought he only remembers his wife. So he thought that his daughter is really looks similar to his wife, and the daughter and the father are reunited at last.
And they take him and go back to London, right? Mr. Lorry and Lucy Manette take Dr. Manette and go back to London to safety because he wasn't safe in Paris. Okay, yes. This was in the year 1775, if you remember, guys. Now, Book 2, Chapter 1 opens in the year 1780, 5 years later, which means maybe Dr. Manette is back to his normal life. Now he is a doctor. He is no longer a prisoner. He is no longer a shoemaker. Now he is Dr. Manette, the physician. And he, remember when he was asked about his name when he was in prison or when he went out of prison, he answered 105 North Tower, the room in which he was imprisoned. So the title, so this is book 2, as you can see, this is book 2 here. Book the second, as it is called, book the first, book the second, book the third, the language used at that time. Remember that this book was published in 1859, roughly 160 years ago. This is why you find the language, because this is the original copy. The language is a little bit difficult for us, we 21st century guys. Book the second, the golden thread. The golden thread. This is the title of the second book. The first book was titled or entitled Recall to Life, if you remember. This book, book 2, which has almost 24 chapters, it's relatively big. It's called the golden thread. The golden thread. Yes, Peter, do you have a question?
لا, I thought told two people to summarize, I was going to summarize them.
Okay. Just because Myrna gave a detailed summary, sorry, Peter, because she took some time. Thank you for raising your hand. Thank you for being active. Chapter 1, يعني in brief, the chapter is about 4 pages and a half. يعني it, let's say, rotates around 2 main ideas. The first idea is about Tellson's. You remember Tellson's, the bank. Tellson's bank and the description of the bank and the atmosphere there. يعني there are about 2 pages describing the bank, okay? And the last 2 or 3 pages talk about a man called Jerry Cruncher. He is a messenger who works for the bank, and the rest of the chapter takes place in his home. Okay, so chapter 1, 5 years later, يعني in 1780, this is the title of the chapter. It describes, the first idea is a description or detailed description of Tellson's Bank in London, and the second part is about Mr. Jerry Cruncher, his wife, and his son. The second part takes place in his home. So I want someone to read, please, the description of the bank. Salma, go ahead. Thank you, Salma. Sorry, Salma, starting with this part, guys, this is in the exam, so be careful and follow up, please. You can be asked to describe the bank. You can be asked to describe Mr. Jerry Cruncher. From now on, you are responsible for this stuff. Okay? Salma, go ahead.
Tellson's Bank by Temple Bar was an old-fashioned place, even in the year 1780. It was very small, very dark, very ugly, and very incommodious. It was an old-fashioned place.
So the bank was very small, very dark, very ugly, very incommodious, very uncomfortable. Salma?
It was an old-fashioned place. Moreover, in the moral attribute that the partners in the house were proud of its smallness and proud of its darkness, proud of its ugliness, and proud of its incommodiousness.
Thank
They
you.
were even boastful.
So, wait. So the place was dark, small, ugly, everything bad. And the owners of the bank were proud of this. Okay? So the place was everything bad, dark, ugly, small, incommodious, and the owners or the partners of the bank were very proud of this. Okay, Salma?
They were even boastful of its of 1 second. They were even boastful of its eminence in those particulars, and were fired by an express conviction that if it were less objectionable, it would be less respectable.
And they want to say the bank was respected and had its customers because of this. It was bad, small, ugly, dirty, uncomfortable, incommodious, and this is why it was famous. You understand it? Okay, Selma.
This was no passive belief, but an active weapon which they flashed at more convenient places of business. Tilson's, they said, wanted no elbow room. Tilson's wanted no light. Tilson's wanted no embellishment. Noakes and Co.'s might, or Noakes brothers might, but Tilson thank heaven.
Wait, Selma. So we don't need any space. It's small, but we don't need elbow room. And elbow room means more space. Tellson's wanted no light. It's dark. We don't need any more light. Tellson's wanted no embellishment, any decorations, any thing like that. Noakes and Co.'s might, another bank might, or Snooks brothers might, others might, but Tellson's, thank heaven, we are satisfied with the state or the atmosphere we are in now. Mariam, do you want to say something?
I wanted to read after Salma,
Okay,
that's all.
after Salma, inshallah. Salma, go on. Salma?
Yes, I continue.
Yes.
Any one of these partners would have disinherited his son on the question of rebuilding Tellson's. In this respect, the house was much on a par with the country, which did very often disinherit its sons, for suggesting improvements in laws and customs that had long been highly objectionable, but were only the more respectable.
Wait, Salma. So,
Is
if the son, wait, Salma, if the son of any partner of the bank asked his father to renovate the bank, this son would have disinherited. His father wouldn't give him any money, okay? He will not inherit any money from his father after his father dies. No son of the partners was allowed to ask his father for a renovation or for some decoration, some more light, some more space, okay? Son.
Thus it had come to pass that Tellson's was the triumph perfection of inconvenience after bursting open a door of idiotic obstinacy,
I guess obstinacy.
obstinacy with a weak rattle in its throat. You fell into Tellson's down two steps and came to your senses in a miserable little shop with two little counters, where the oldest of men um,
Check.
made your check shake as if the wind rustled it, while they examined the signature by the den-
Dungeons
dingiest
of
of
women.
windows, which were always under a shower path of mud from Fleet Street, and which were made the dignier by their own iron bars proper, and the heavy shadow of Temple Bar. If your business necessitated your seeing the house, you were put into a species of condemned hold at the back, where you meditated on a misspent life until the house came with its hands in its pockets, and you could hardly blink at it in the dismal twilight. Your money came out of or went into wormy old wooden drawers, particles of which flew up your nose and down your throat when they were opened and shut. Your banknotes had a musty odor, as if they were fast decomposing into rags again. Your place was stowed away among the neighboring balls and evil uh,
Communication.
communications.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, I'd like to focus on two expressions here. They say here on the first line of this paragraph, Tellson's was the triumphant perfection of inconvenience. As you see, everything about the bank is inconvenient. The space, it's small. The light, it's dark. Okay, and the odor, it's a very bad smell. The bank is very old, and the owners of the bank don't want to renovate it. So Tellson's was the triumphant perfection. You know, the word perfection is the opposite of the word inconvenience. So it was the triumphant perfection of inconvenience. Okay, this is a paradox. And here, if you want to see the house here capitalized, maybe this is the manager of the bank at that time called the house. You were put into a species of condemned hold at the back. You were sent to a dark room at the back of the bank where you meditated, you know, meditation on a misspent life until the house came with its hands in its pockets. I'm not sure why he's using it here. And you could hardly blink at it. Maybe this is the safe in which you save your money or something. in the dismal twilight. At twilight, it's relatively dark. Your money came out of or went in this house, wormy old wooden drawers. So the money were kept in wormy, worm, what a worm is, old wooden drawers, particles of which flew up your nose and down your throat when they were opened and shut. The particles of these filthy drawers flew up to your nose or down your throat. Your banknotes had a musty odor, a very filthy, a very bad smell, as if they were fast decomposing into rags again. Your plate, the plate is maybe the container in which your money is kept, was stowed away among the neighboring cesspools and evil communication. Mariam wants to read. So corrupted, it's good polish in a day or two. You can start here.
Your deeds got into extemporized strong rooms made of kitchens and sculleries, and fretted all the fat out of their parchments into the banking house air. Your lighter boxes of family papers went upstairs into a parmicide room that always had a great dining table in it, and never had a dinner, and where, even in the year 1780, the first letters written to you by your old love or by your little children were but newly released from the horror of being ogled through the windows by the heads exposed in Temple Bar with an insensate
And since
uh,
eight,
brutality
yes,
and ferocity worthy of Abyssinia and Ashanti.
or Ashanti. Okay. Here, he still describes how the bank itself and the place or the square in which the bank lies is horrible. It's near a place called Temple Bar. Maybe this is a place where people were executed or killed. And the Barmecide here, Barmecide room, as we will see later, is used to be a room in which called a person called Barmecide and maybe entertained a person for dinner, and he served him no food. He gave him an empty plate. It's a room full of illusion and stuff like that. Okay, so it's the description of the place. It looks like Abyssinia. Abyssinia is nowadays Ethiopia, or Ashanti, like nowadays Ghana. Okay, yani, something that belongs to African countries. Mariam?
But indeed, at that time, putting to death was a recipe much in vogue with all trades and professions, and not least of all with Tellson's. Death is nature's remedy for all things, and why not legislation's? Accordingly, the forger was put to death. The utterer of a bad note was put to death. The unlawful opener of a letter was put to death. The purloiner of 40 shillings and sixpence. Purloiner of 40 shillings and sixpence was put to death. The holder of a horse at a Tellson's door, who made off with it, was put to death. The coiner of a bad shilling was put to death. The sounders of 3/4 of the notes in the whole gamut of crime were put to death. Not that it did the least good in the way of prevention. It
So
might almost have been worth remarking the fact that it was exactly the reverse.
hold
But
on.
it cleared off.
Mariam, hold on for a second. Okay. So for any crime you would commit, you were sentenced to death. This is why in that temple bar, many people were executed. Again, death is nature's remedy for all things. Whatever you do, you are sentenced to death. Okay? Whatever you do, you are sentenced to death. Again, accordingly, the forger was put to death. The utterer of a bad note was put to death. If you say anything bad, the unlawful opener of a letter was put to death. If you open a letter unlawfully, illegally, you were put to death. A purloiner is a thief. Any thief of 40 shillings who steals a small sum of money like 40 shillings and sixpence was put to death. And the holder of a horse at Tellson's door who made off with it, who escaped with the horse, was sent or was put to death, and so on. The list is long. So for any, again, let's read this line. Death was nature or is nature's remedy for all things. Whatever you do, you are put to death. Okay, Mariam, you read up to here.
But it cleared off, as to this world, the trouble of each particular case, and left nothing else connected with it to be looked after. Thus Tellson's in its days, like greater places of business, its contemporaries had taken so many lives that if the heads laid low before it had been ranged on Temple Bar instead of being privately disposed of, they would probably have excluded what little light the ground floor had in a rather significant matter. Crammed in all kind of dun cupboards and hutchers at Tellson's, the oldest of men carried on the business gravely. When they took a young man into Tellson's London house, they hid him somewhere till he was old. They kept him in a dark place, like a cheese, until he had the full Tellson flavour and blue mould upon him. Then only he was permitted to be seen, spectacularly poring over large books, and casting his breeches and gaiters into the general weight of the establishment.
Wait, Mariam, wait. This is the last paragraph in the description of the bank. And this is a very nice paragraph. I like it. Cramped in all kinds of dun cupboards and hatches at Tellson's. So imagine a dirty, small place like this is full of old cupboards with old papers and files. The oldest of men, all the people there, all the people you could see at the bank were white bearded, okay, had white beards. The oldest of men carried on the business gravely. All the people there were old. When they took a young man, if a young man like Abdurrahman Rashwan goes to have a job at Telson's, they hid him, they hid Abdurrahman, they hide him somewhere till he was old. You don't know where they keep this young man until he turns old. They kept him in a dark place like a cheese, okay, like a cheese until he had the full Telson flavor. Telson's worker or employee should be old, should be white bearded, okay? The blue mold upon him, and the blue mold grows upon him. Uh,
Continue.
Okay, wait, Mariam. So all the people at the bank, all the worker there were very old. If a young man joins them, he would kept somewhere like a cheese until blue mold, you know, blue mold that grows on old bread or stale bread, grows upon him. Then only was he permitted to be seen when spectacularly poring over large books and casting his breeches and gaiters into the general weight of the establishment. So let's move on to the second scene. This is the first scene, the bank and the description of the bank. As I told you at the very beginning, the second scene is the description of Mr. Jerry Cruncher, a Telson's bank worker or messenger, and his family, his wife and his son. Mariam, go on.
Outside Tellson's, never by any means in it unless called in, was an odd job man, an occasional porter and messenger who served as the life sign of the house. He was never absent during business hours, unless upon an errand. Then he was represented by his son, a grisly urchin of 12, who was his express image. People understood that Tellson's, in a stately way, tolerated the odd job man. The house had tolerated some person in that capacity, and time and tide had drifted to this person to the post. His surname was Cruncher, and on the youthful occasion of his renouncing by proxy the works of darkness in the easterly parish church of Hunsditch, he had received the added appellation of Jerry.
So his name
The
is
scene
Cruncher. Jerry, you know, the appellation is the name or a given name or like a nickname, Jerry Cruncher. Okay, this is Jerry Cruncher. What's his job? He was, as the book says here, a porter. You know, a porter is the person who carries things, heavy things, and a messenger, like office boy. If you want to buy something from outside the bank, you would send this messenger or this office boy to get it for you. Okay, thank you, Mariam. I want another person to read. Uh, Another person to read. Where is Basant? We still have about 10 minutes. So I think we would go to the summary, and this is the summary. Yes, I'll go to the summary, guys. Because you can complete the chapter, there are still 3 pages. This is book 2, chapter 1. And here is the summary. I'll maximize it a little bit. I will read the summary and the analysis, and then the important vocab items. You'll find this file on your SMS. 5 years have passed since Tellson's Bank sent Mr. Lorry to bring Dr. Manette back to England. Tellson's continues to be the triumphant perfection of inconvenience. Again, we focused on this expression. It was the triumphant perfection of inconvenience, with its old-fashioned dark and cramped facility, lending it an air of respectability and security. Maybe this inconvenience lend this place an air of or a flavor of responsibility or respectability and security. Jerry Cruncher, this is the second half, acts as a porter and messenger for the bank, and his son, who is also called Jerry. So we have Jerry and his son Jerry. The boy is 12, often accompanies him. So Jerry Jr. often accompanied Jerry Sr. At home before work one morning, the sight of his wife praying frustrates Jerry. Jerry, the father, didn't like it when he saw his wife praying. He complains that she prays against his prosperity. He complains, why doesn't he like her prayers? Because he complained that she prays against his prosperity, against his business. What is his business? We're not sure. He is a porter and the messenger for the bank. Does he do anything else? We're not sure yet. And tells her he won't tolerate it because she prays against his prosperity. Okay, at breakfast or after breakfast, Jerry and his son walk to Tellson's and station themselves. They put themselves in front of the bank before it opens. Soon the bank calls Jerry to deliver a message. Meanwhile, young Jerry puzzles. The young boy, the little boy, puzzles over, gets confused about the source of the iron rust that is always on his father's fingers. His father's fingers were always covered with iron rust, and the little boy was always puzzled by this. Can you guess why the porter's hand is always covered with iron rust? I haven't finished the question yet, Myrna. Okay, Myrna raised her hand. Myrna?
I'm not sure, but maybe because of the saddle that he uses to dig graves.
How did you know he used to dig graves? Okay.
I think the characters when we talked
Yes,
about them in
yes,
the beginning.
thank you. Maybe.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. That's it. Okay. The analysis. So this is the chapter in brief, guys. The first half describes the bank in detail as we read it in the first 2 pages. And then we have about 3 pages and a half talking about Mr. Jerry, his son and his wife, and you know the situation that took place in his home. This is the analysis. Dickens depicts the venerable Tellson's Bank as being in the business of death. It's a dead bank, dark, small, dirty. This is death. Bad odor, okay, described as dark, ugly, and cramped. You know, a cramped place is small and dingy. Dingy means dark and had some old smell. Tellson's boasts, and they are very proud of it, an atmosphere of deliberate grimness and decay. They boasted, okay? Money, documents, and valuables that go into Tellson's for safekeeping are buried in wormy old wooden drawers. They are kept in drawers which are wormy and old. And this money acquires a musty odor, a filthy odor, as if they were fast decomposing or being corrupted, like a dead body which decomposes or gets corrupted. Okay, Just as material goods are buried and decay in Telsons, the bank transformed the people who deal with it as well. Yani the people are kept in dark places if a young man joins them, like old cheese, as he says, like the money. Okay, the bank hides clerks who go to work at Telsons as young men until they become old. Additionally, Telsons literally sends people to their deaths. The bank identifies forgers, debtors, if you are in debt, counterfeiters, and petty thieves, thieves who steal petty money means little money, sixpence or 40 shillings, as it was stated in the book, and petty thieves who eventually go to their graves under the harsh death penalty. Death was the nature's punishment or penalty for everything. Not coincidentally, Dickens locates Tellson's next to the Temple Bar. And I told you that the Temple Bar is the square where those people were sentenced to death, were executed. An arched gateway to the city where the government sometimes display the heads of the executed. So even the place in which the bank is located was horrible. Jerry Cruncher, the porter and the messenger, serves as the live sign of the house because he is sent on errands. The atmosphere inside the bank is refers to death. But Jerry used to go in and out the bank, which was the live sign of the house, which indicates that he may have something to do with death as well. Mm. He had something to do with death, and Myrna referred to it like many of the other characters in the novel. Jerry appears to have a secret. Some of his physical characteristics and personality traits create an air of mystery, such as his muddy boots. His boots were always muddy. Why? His rusty fingers, which puzzle his son, and his paranoia regarding his wife's prayers. He was afraid of his wife's prayer, and he complained that it was against his business. We still have about 2 minutes to read the glossary or the vocab quickly. Banknote. A banknote is something like a check. This is the definition we have here. A promissory note issued by a bank, payable to the bearer on demand, and which can be used as money. The same as a check. CHECK, American English, CHEQUE, British English. A plate, the tableware. You know what a plate is? A dish, often made of silver in the past, or covered with a layer of silver. It was plated with silver. A Barmecide room, a room in which things are an illusion. Barmecide was a prince in the Arabian Nights who offered a beggar a feast, a meal, and set an empty plate before him. Purloiner means a thief. A purloiner was put to death. Whitefriars are a district of central London between Fleet Street and the Temple area where criminals and fugitive debtors lived. Personal board, a person's daily meals. Choused, cheated or swindled. Hackney coach, a coach for hire. Oftentimes a six-seat carriage drawn by two horses. Laudanum, a solution of opium. You know, opium is like a drug in alcohol or wine used as a painkiller or sleeping aid or drunk as an intoxicant. Okay, this is the vocab list of the chapter. Please make sure you read the chapter. We were supposed to finish both chapters 1 and 2 today, but I wanted to finish the prologue before we start this. So tomorrow, inshallah, we'll try to do chapter 2 and maybe part of chapter 3 because chapter 3 is a little bit long. Thank you very much and see you tomorrow, inshallah. Oh, takes time. Don't know why. So I